Michael?
Please say your name.
He's gone.
Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. We're resuming work on at 213 and act relating to regulation of wetlands, river corridor development and dam safety. We're on the home stretches trying to resolve some last standing issues and put the bill in the shape for a vote tomorrow. So with that, I think just looking, there are a number of people who are all here only because of dams. And so I thought, as a kindness to them, maybe we would take dams first and then go back to the balance of the bill. I do want to say overall, though, as we get started, that we've been, I think, working as hard as we can back and forth to understand what we want to get done, to clarify what we want to get done, and to do it in the most timely way possible. And we've moved dates forward, we've moved dates back. But my sense is that my sense of the committee, or I'll just speak for myself, is that if I can see us move back to our earlier dates, and I had talked to the secretary this morning, you know, we want to be practical in terms of helping it be a process, whichever you here like. Or you could join us at the table.
Why don't you do that?
Yeah, and you could you'll be fielding edits, I think that's doing your job. Thank you.
Just repeat what copy you're going to be working.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, for anyone who's in the room or not in the room, it's Bill SG 13 draft 6.1 dated 2/15/24, 6:35 p.m. anytime. So moving back where I left off, that I'd like to return to those earlier dates. I talked to the secretary about. We know that it's there. We want to see the operating areas succeed in implementation. We want to give them every resource possible necessary to succeed, and we know we're asking for an ambitious schedule. So I think it comes, you know, the back and forth from my point of view is that the ambitious schedule entails assigning more resources. It's up to the legislature to come up with those additional resources. So that's one thing. We will know where we are better before we adjourn. Did we come up with the money or not? I'm saying, as I have before, if we don't fully fund what we're asking for, then I think it's we have an obligation to trim back what we have required to match the resource that we have suffered. It's just not fair to an operating area to say do more for the same staff when people are already very busy. The other thing is I talked to Michael a little bit informally about adding a report so that each January 15th we'll have a report from the agency and check in and have not necessarily very long report, just something like a check-in. What's happened in the prior year? How are we doing on our timelines? How are we doing on resources? What adjustments are needed for the coming year? So that it's a status check, so that if we see problems, we will see them in a timely way and make adjustments. The whole timeline for developments, something like 6-7 years. As I don't, you know, usually if you when they fly to the moon, they have a long path to get there, but they make course adjustments along the way so they get where they're going. The we'll make course adjustments, and that's what that annual report would.
Yeah, right now.
So that's it for preamble. And Ms. Smith, thank you for joining us. I know that hopefully you've had a chance to get some additional information about the consequences of moving into 26 and 28 dates instead of 28 and 30. The secretary thought if she could, she would give you information perhaps to share with us, but I don't want to put you on the spot. We'll get to those sections. So enough of that, wanted to go to the dam section of the bill. Since, and need a little flipping here,
I mean, this job for everyone.
6.1,
No, it's your.
that's a
You
page
know, with that, when you
Where?
were here, but I would have put it on.
where dams.
Oh, this is my
Back. Like,
What do you even see for
page 1 of the dam sections, in fact, and
page 32?
I'm trying to find the copy of the hand, but I'm having to.
Thank you very much. All right, so. I'm gonna just start moving forward. The first. Flag I have is on page 34. Dam removal. And as best I recall, but let me check with everyone in the room. The definition was fine as is, the new definition. You want to go, Ms. Smith?
I thank you for the records. I don't know if we're on the record.
Yes,
This is Hannah Smith. Okay. There was one additional clause added to this that we discussed, with the advocates, and I think Jared sent it, earlier today, but I can read it aloud if that's,
Let's do it.
trying to find it. This is in the definition of dam removal. And the added clause would be at the end, so sorry, I'll read the whole thing. Dam removal means all actions needed to eliminate the risk of dam failure related inundation below the dam. And includes partial or complete structural removal. To the extent that the dam is no longer capable of impounding water, liquids, or sediment. The idea being that
Yeah,
partial removal might not result in the dam no longer being capable of impounding water. This is just a belt and suspenders clarification of what dam removal means.
can you read from inundation below the dam from there on?
Inundation below the dam and includes partial or complete structural removal to the extent that the dam is no longer capable of impounding water, liquids, or sediment.
Anything? It's okay on your side? Mr. Carpenter.
Chair Carpenter, Lake Champlain Committee. Mr. Chair, we had the advocates had sent, well, we had talked to Hannah on Friday about a few things, and this is one of the areas of agreement. There was an area or two of still disagreement. But I had sent it about 1 o'clock-ish, a memo to the committee that had all of our, a little more than 2 pages of our suggestions.
Okay, they go to Judy as well. I've been in.
Yes.
This morning,
It's like 1 o'clock.
yeah, 1 o'clock, we both got.
Just so I could forward it to Ms. Brady if the committee agrees.
That would be helpful. So, okay, any concerns about modifying that definition? Okay, onward.
But I do on page 34, this will need someone will inform me why the transfer of authority.
Why the transfer of
Yeah, of authority
to
to jurisdiction.
the thought was out of roughly, 1,100 dams in the state, only 21 are under the supervision in terms of safety by the PUC, and that why not put them all into a single program that's staffed full to do it. Ms. Schilling can fill us in, but I think you have to hire outside engineers to do your safety work, right?
That's correct. It's best practice to have one state entity regulate dam safety for all dams in the state.
Right, so, Mr. Grady, we have 13 through 18 aligned. I'm gonna need some reminding of
sorry, 13 through 18 of the public safety, of the CPG requirements.
Yeah. But none of them.
So you're on page 40.
Oh, no, sorry, I'm, page 34 still, but that's lines 14 through 18. There are edits there, and I don't know if anyone has concerns, but there's an issue around those edits.
So previously, the language of getting on line 14 to 18 was struck.
Yeah.
Because there was thought that there was no longer the need for the language.
Right.
But it turns out that the department does have jurisdiction over some structures where electric generation is regulated separately, and so this is just to clarify that they still retain.
Yeah. Going fine here?
Just one point, Dylan Zerke with B9 Public Affairs on behalf of Green Mountain Power. I think this is the way the language reads, but just want to make sure that this is saying that DEC has oversight of structure and not the generation. And the reason I'm asking is that the liability sections and the other later in the bill, I believe, apply only to non-federal dams. And so just want to make sure that the liability provisions, if they stay in the bill, don't apply to generation aspects. In other words, the liability language really only applies to the non-FERC dams, and don't want this sort of inadvertently to pull those two facilities into them.
So I'm not gonna.
I think that's correct, and I don't think these changes change the underlying fact of this language. So it was the way that it was before.
Right, but the liability language.
The liability language is relevant, I give you an update.
And we'll be coming to that. Okay, so page 35, there's the documents transferred. Here, can you hear anything about the problems with that? Let's put a check mark. We're good to go on that. That takes us all the way up to roughly well, we have the issue of page 39, page 40, public safety. So we moved public safety up, it's sort of first amongst equals in the way it's expressed now.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone retains an issue with this or not.
Okay, no, that's, we don't go looking for trouble. Page 41. All the changes on page 41, I have check marks next to that we have gone through them and people were fine. If we go backtracking there, all right, good. And I have check marks on the page 42 for the yellow highlighting on the top of the page. Then we have a stop point with liability for dam failure. And I don't. So, Michael, can you remind us about the bold text is changed from two generations prior, right?
No, the bold text is really just an issue that remains,
Okay,
and it is from 4.1, yes, so 2 versions, but it hasn't been changed since the last time it was changed, it's just you haven't, there's questions, debate, discussion about it from the various.
so I had gotten in touch with DFR, I haven't gotten any answers back from DFR. Having asked them the question, Massachusetts, this is Massachusetts liability language, Massachusetts has dams, and Massachusetts seems to be able to insure those dams. But without that assurance, I'd rather not bring change to liability language without being able to answer the very reasonable question of what are the consequences of this for dam owners in the state. If we get better answers from DFR or others, then if it's before it's gone to the floor, we can bring up amendments as individuals, or if it takes longer than that, the House could dig into it, but my preference, and you know what, I don't know what people think would be, let's take something out that we don't have the data to support. Senator Watson, you're nodding.
Yeah, no, I disagree. I think we need more information.
So I don't know where those, how far those reliability, is that pretty much discrete?
It is.
Okay. So we would just, marking it as remove. Remove and keep working offline.
You have a comment from.
Mr. Street.
Yes, I thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to take us back, but I'm going to. I'm wondering if the committee would be open to the suggestion just to provide some additional clarity around the previous section and add some language that says state of Vermont, this is going back to page 34.
That is the wrong.
I'm sorry. Yes, so starting from and the dam structure is regulated separately from the electric generation shall be under the jurisdiction of the department, and then say, except to the extent of regulation at those facilities related solely to the electric generation under the Federal Power Act. In other words, making very clear that DEC's authority is, you're not sort of, because it's still for the generation, that there's clearly a line there between regulation for dam safety for the structure and then not rating into regulating the FERC. So I think it would be cleaner.
So I'd like to look to the legal colleagues at the other end of the table, make sure this is a clarification, not a policy choice.
It's fine with me. I mean, that's basically how I read this language.
So can you, I don't know if you caught that or you know how to just write that?
Can you just forward it to the email or whatever, however you.
Okay, so we'll be looking for some additional clarification there.
Okay.
Wait, do you have another?
No, I think I'm done. So I can't promise.
Okay. Right, I think we paused, then back on page. Then we took out 1091 page. We're going, I'm flipping. So we're on. The next 40 highlighted thing is 48. Can you frame up the pending issue here for us? Please?
Sure, so the current unsafe dam revolving fund is being amended, so it's a dam safety fund. And there will be assistance provided from the fund and loans, some grants, and then loan subsidy. The question, concern, debate between the advocates and the agency is whether or not to be eligible for non-emergency funding, that there has to be removal options that considers floodplain, wetland restoration, water quality, aquatic or organism passage, and public recreation opportunities. That's what the advocates want. The agency is proposing considers an evaluation of risk reduction, dam safety, and environmental permitting considerations. And then similarly, the advocates want under subdivision 2 for loan subsidy, only engineering analysis, design, and construction that result in removal of a dam are eligible for loan subsidy, whereas the agency is asking for only engineering analysis, design, and construction that result in acceptable risk reduction are eligible.
So, Mr. Carpenter, did you and agency come to compromise language on this, or do we?
No, we did not, but we came up with a third version that we offered the agency, but there's still a disagreement as to whether or not, how much of a focus should be on just the risk reduction and safety versus ecological benefits, but I can read it. It's a variation on the second E where we took out the word at the bottom lines 15 through 19. We took out the word environmental permitting on line 17, and it now reads to be eligible for non-emergency funding. An alternative analysis of dam repair, rehabilitation, and removal options that considers an evaluation of risk reduction, dam safety, ecological resilience, and public benefit considerations, and costs shall be completed pursuant to the rule by the department. The thought being is that rather than itemizing all the things that were up in lines 8 through 9, we would still have ecological considerations be taken into account, but a broader umbrella of that and public benefits when weighing that alternatives analysis. So risk reduction would be first and foremost, but there would be a broader umbrella rather than just risk reduction and dam safety. And I think that's where the difference of opinion is with the agency. But I would Hannah answer that one.
Thank you. Mr. Green or Ms. Smith, do you want to speak to what numbers here and why? Help us sort this one out.
I can start, I think that ultimately the focus, I mean, what we're talking about here is funds that are distributed for repair projects that are reviewed under the same criteria as any dam modification project. And the dam safety program's focus is always risk reduction and public safety first and foremost.
Yeah.
And the considerations here focus on risk reduction. We believe that similarly, funding should be available for a project that appropriately reduces risk to the point that ensures public safety. The program does not want in statute to prioritize the types of projects that are eligible for subsidy. We want to be able to provide adequate funding for any project that appropriately reduces risk. Ben, do you have anything that you want to add to the nuance of this language here?
No, I think you got it, Ben Green, Chief Dam Safety Engineer for the record from DGC. I think she articulated it pretty well. You know, environmental permitting is in the language we proposed, and that, I mean, we have to evaluate for all the alternatives, what agreement permittable solutions and what the pros and cons are of each of these from a variety of different aspects. So again, gonna be touching on that some, and from the standpoint of the statute and the mission is risk reduction kind of regardless of what the final solution is, so that we prefer to stay focused on that.
What does ecological considerations take in that environmental permitting considerations doesn't take in?
It's the person who didn't write the language, I'm gonna take a stab at this, Mr. Chair. I think the thought being that ecological resilience would be beyond environmental permitting in terms of dam removals that would allow for a greater flood resilience, that would allow for a safer dam was one that has been removed, rather than environmental permitting, which to me strikes more as stream operation permits or something that is really more of a permitted activity. I think this is looking to be a little bit broader when talking about flood and climate resilience and the ecological benefits of the dam removal on flood and climate resilience. Maybe that's a better way of saying it, Mr. Chair.
So are you saying that the environmental considerations entirely open-ended, that's an entirely open-ended phrase, is bigger than what permitting looks at? And so
I would say
there's
so.
benefits that are not addressed if you only address things for which permitting is a consideration.
Yeah, I would say it is broader than that, but it's still, obviously, the way this is written, risk reduction and dam safety would be a primary factor, but the ecological resilience would be something that would be taken into consideration in the alternatives analysis. That's fine.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I was out of the room, so I apologize. We're at the point of the debate where the advocates are saying that they would like money to only be allowed for removal, and the agency is promoting the idea that they have it for other things. Is that the inflection point we're at right now? Or I'm just trying to get my bearings. We're on page 48.
Looking
We're
at
trying to, we're
versus
deciding
E
between
versus E.
E versus E, and the agency is advocating for the first E, and the second E, F is from the ambulance.
The other way around.
Okay, that makes more sense, thank you.
The Senator White, the agency, both options allow for funding for removal or repair. The distinction in F is that the agency would allow for subsidy of loans
Oh,
given
versus, okay,
for either option, whereas the advocate's language only allows subsidy for removal.
okay, I remember,
Correct, that's,
okay.
that was the new one.
Yeah, I was in favor of it only being for removal for the subsidy piece, but. I don't know if there was a compelling argument made, but I missed in the interim.
I'm not there yet.
Our next.
Right, and on page 49 is the fund line.
Yeah,
I'm also there. I would prefer that the money. If it's going to be subsidized, I recognize that subsidy can look a lot of different ways. Part of me would like to get into what. The different ways that subsidy could look, and maybe there's some nuance. To that, but given the amount of time we have, I would rather just go cleanly, like, if you're gonna subsidize it, it's gotta be for removal.
Most instances, there's really gonna be two common subsidies, it's loan forgiveness or a sub-zero interest rate.
A sub-zero. It could, I mean, if you were just buying down the interest rate, that's not an option generally.
So I don't know really if you've ever, this fund has never been used like this before, has it?
No,
No, I don't know if we can, in other funds, like the SRF, Special Revolving Loan Funds. They will basically buy down the interest, and we set the interest at like. From, I think it's like 2 or less, right?
I can't speak to that, sorry.
But it can be very low.
Anyway, that's where I'm at.
Okay, so removal. Senator McCormick, we're doing the Fisher Cut.
yeah, acceptable. The acceptable,
The removal version.
no, not the removal, I'm saying that if it's an acceptable risk or,
yeah.
Yeah, we do. We all learned in high school, the legislature tells the administration what to do. And the administration carries the power will. However, the administration tells us what it is we should tell. I mean, we're the elected ones, we have the authority of the people, but they have the expertise for doing it. So if someone can make an argument that they're wrong, I'll go against it. But
Okay, Senator McDonald, have you landed anywhere yet? Which is either to restrict the money to only removal or ones that could also end up with dam repair or rehabilitation. The right way to phrase the question, for the subsidy, all right.
Then what's the game?
There could be potentially two gangs right
You know,
now.
there's the sharks and they.
And
Where is it?
we're the sharks, we're the sharks gang. We're the gang.
which gang, what does that mean?
He means, he,
He's hanging along with
the crowd, I've been told the crowd split the half.
It's
if I could make a final argument.
yes,
The way that this bill requires the agency to adopt the rules for the administration of this fund. And the other language prior to this subsection E and F lays out fairly strict eligibility requirements associated with receiving the money. It's not, I mean, receiving a loan to repair a dam requires pretty extensive information provided by the dam owner, including financial information that ensures they'll be able to maintain it up to safety standards. I would argue that the safeguards are in here to ensure that we are only funding dams that absolutely need the money, and we're funding it to the extent that the most appropriate repair can be made.
I mean, it's a very good argument, but Mr. Chair,
yes, ma'am.
the one point that I still feel should be made is that we have a limited pool of funding. And my preference is when they can be removed, they should be removed. If it makes sense versus us having to come back in 5 years, 10 years to do another repair. So I guess my only question, may I ask if I find the agency? In the instance that you were to subsidize a loan that was made for repair. If someone came back in 5 years or 10 years, however, would they still be eligible to draw for the fund and get the loan and get a subsidy again for the same repair?
It's difficult to answer that question because an evaluation again of alternatives available would have to be made at that point. If additional work was being proposed for the dam. Evaluation again would have to be made for if the hazard classification had changed, if the condition of the dam had been changed. I don't think that I could answer that. Like the language of the bill doesn't impose restrictions on receiving money multiple times from the fund. So it would really, again, be an instance of first impression, like the agent, like going back and reevaluating the dam, what again is the most appropriate way to reduce risk there.
That's a fair answer too.
Ben, this is me.
Certainly.
Sure, I just make the point that on the ground, you know, we respect the dams throughout the state. And as you are all aware, there's technical standards that are coming due in 2025. Historically, we've been a very passive regulated state when it comes to dams. And one of the, you know, pitfalls you can fall into when you get the authority to regulate people, regulate dam owners, is to try to have them bring up into dam compliance. And in some cases, that's going to be fiscally not possible. And you're going to end up into a stalemate where we're saying you really need to do something, and they're saying we don't have the money. And so ultimately that's what we're trying to avoid. It is giving dam owners the resources, because there are dams out there that provide a lot of benefits. There are ones that don't. That's why we do the alternative analysis is a must, because you need to look at all alternatives, understand which ones, you know, the board of removal is truly not, and some that really isn't. The dam safety statute doesn't require removals of people. It's really a dam owner decision. They own the risk and liability of dam ownership. And so I mean, from that standpoint, we don't want to limit ourselves. We want to, at the end of the day, we want to improve as many dams as we can to, you know, safety and compliance. And we don't want to avoid those stalemate situations that we potentially get into otherwise. Sure.
It'll help me with my decision,
Okay.
So, that is a compelling argument. The idea that there are situations where there are dam owners who could afford a repair loan, but could not afford a removal loan, is that the point? So there are people who wouldn't remove and then wouldn't choose to repair either. Is that what you're describing, or?
Correct. There are owners who I don't think who would choose not to remove, and then we get stuck into a stalemate of regulatorily, we kind of hit our on the bottom. What can we do about these cases? And we sort of get into a do loop, and that's what happened in Michigan, where there's that date a couple of years ago, where perfect stuck in a do loop with an owner who couldn't move forward. So
Okay.
again, dams, you know, this statute, dam safety, cut dam removal, and it allows the owner to make decisions for themselves as the owner of the asset.
Okay, I'm the same.
All right.
Mr.
So we put agency language onward.
For F.
Correct.
What about for E?
I'm having a harder time understanding the difference between E and F. I mean, E and E. E, oh, I apologize.
You're having a hard time understanding what's being taken out. So most of the considerations in the applicant's original proposal about considering floodplain and wetland restoration, water quality, audit organism passage, public recreation, they would be removed. And what they're proposing is to amend the agency's language and take environmental permitting out and instead insert ecological resilience and public benefit. So to an extent, the list in the advocate's original proposal is about ecological resilience. It's about aquatic organism passage, it's about floodplain restoration, etc. It's about public benefit. So to an extent, they're using a more ambiguous, less specific term to get their considerations as part of the application and review of the application for award.
And who's gonna be performing the analysis that delivers this?
The department.
typically the engineer hired by the dam owner.
Yeah. So if it's someone to bring
That's,
Oh, wait, for the
that's in the rulemaking.
analysis of what, I mean. This is gonna be part of the application. This is gonna need to be eligible for the dam safety loan. For assistance, non-emergency.
So I think
But
what, in part what I'm asking is, if we change the criteria that are being collected in the application, are you in a position to review based on those criteria, or are they novel, and so it's not the way you've made decisions, so you don't really have way to make decisions about it? Does that make sense?
I guess I didn't envision this being as part of the application. Because the application is gonna come for projects in various stages, It's gonna be
Yeah.
projects of which. The first step is doing engineering analyses and an alternatives analysis to figure out even what the options are here. Then there's gonna be a funding step where you just select a alternative selected, and then it's designing it, and then there's gonna be a step where you construct it, so it's almost gonna be a three-step process. And the way I would view it, is what's gonna happen, some owners may do some preliminary work ahead of time and step into the process partway through, but I know this is sort of getting ahead of where the statute is versus where the rule may end up, but. I think that the alternative analysis needs to be done, as part of early the project, as part of, preliminary engineering essentially.
Okay.
Jeremy.
Jerry, Mr. Carpenter.
Yes, thank you, Chair Carpenter. So we've not envisioned that the program would do the alternatives analysis, and you have the rulemaking, I think, down on 52, number 6, which is included. I think envisions that, but I might be misinterpreting. It says requirements for access to financing and subsidy from dam safety revolving loan fund, including the requirement that an alternatives analysis be performed by an engineering consultant hired by either the dam owner or the department. So it would be an independent, it would be somebody else that would be doing it, not that we wouldn't put that on the program. Let me rephrase that would not be put on.
So, given that, the analysis you're talking about, the language typical of for resilience and public benefit could be broader than environmental permitting. Bringing more information into the discussion doesn't seem like an outside. Unless I'm missing something, from the agency side. More information, maybe a little broader than what environmental permitting.
I guess I don't want to argue this is the dam safety statute, since 18 public benefit is making these structures resilient and safe in the future. That's the greatest public benefit we can give, whether that's removal or that's rehabilitation.
Yeah.
That's the public benefit. The people who live downstream who don't have a voice in this whole process otherwise are being protected.
Yeah.
That's our vision.
Okay, with that alternative language, though, dam safety and ecological resilience and public benefits, does that compromise your ability to keep public safety first?
I think that if the concern is, this might be information that wouldn't otherwise be considered an evaluation of risk reduction. I don't think that, I would have to reread the language that the advocates are proposing, but the agency's position is that the focus be on risk reduction, and removal options that consider an evaluation of the permitting criteria that's already established in statute.
So for the clarity of evaluating based on what we have in statute, I mean, I can see how if you started having novel criteria to evaluate on and you're not, there's no statutory basis for them. You could end up in a weird position and trying to evaluate on metrics that aren't codified anyway. So my suggestion would be to keep E and F as a package the way
The agency.
for me.
Could I ask you the two questions? You're gonna be doing a CPG review, right, for most of these? Because you're gonna need to do that for a dam safety.
Not the permitting phase, right?
Yeah. And so that's gonna include reference to public benefits, it's gonna include payment of the water quality standards, it's gonna include recreation, hazards, the navigation. So if this is part of a permit or authorization, dam safety or whatever you want to call it, you're gonna be doing this anyway.
I guess from our standpoint, arguably most of the things in that list are things that are. When this, as our understanding is when this statute first came out and dam safety permit first done, there's so much clearinghouse permit where there were a lot of other environmental permits, and this was meant to cover it. That's far from the case today where there's. As many cases are the whole public good criteria is somewhat duplicative to environmental permitting in this modern way it's done, so.
I guess my point is the ecological considerations, the resilience and the public benefit are part of the permit process.
Oh, so why would it be an issue to actually put it in a sentence?
It's weighing, it's weighing just different ecological impact
Right.
against each other. And in terms of decision making, in terms of, it's the list. The most important thing is public safety, and then we evaluate how other elements are typically it's actually the applicants provide reasoning, how those impact the other things in the CPG.
Right, but you're gonna need to look at whether or not it needs a stream off permit. You're gonna have to look at whether it's achieving Vermont water quality standards and then maintaining all the traditional recreation uses. You might have to look at whether or not it needs a wetlands permit because it's gonna impact the wetland.
Environmental permitting, okay.
I would be happy to do the E that we got from the advocates and the F that we got from the agency.
I don't know if we're making you pushing for you out of this thing or,
Yeah.
it sounds, based on that last conversation, I'm getting the sense that the ecological resilience and public benefit criteria that have been proposed are part of what you'll be looking at anyway. Yeah. So, I would, reversing myself.
If we just did.
And then thinking of that, knowing that this bill has a long way to go to get here in the finish line, if there's more nuance to be sorted out. Then let's do that. I hate to say it, that's like it's downstream. That's just that's a word I use all the time, downstream. Okay. So onward, upward, we're recommending lower the E from 15th to 19th, add an ecological resilience and public benefit instead of in place of environmental considerations. Correct? Or
Are you're replacing ecological, environmental permitting with ecological resilience? Is that what you're saying?
I thought that was the proposal. Replace or were you talking about an insertion or a replace?
It's a replacement, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
Ecological resilience and public benefit were actually the two.
instead of environmental permitting considerations.
Yes.
Got it. That's what I thought. Okay. Onward.
That was easy.
Yeah, that was easy. Some will be easier. Okay. Going forward. I'm looking for a place where there's an issue and
Okay, I have, my next page I have is 59.
Same here.
Really?
I have actually on 56.
Oh, 52? There's just yellow language on 52.
I do have an issue.
Oh, yes, more.
Senator 56.
There is the list here, starting on line 6, powers and duties of the study committee on dam emergency operations planning shall. And the first item is identify those dams in the state that are classified as high hazard dams that also have a significant possibility of flooding populated areas. I think I just need to be clarified on there are 3 classes of danger. And my understanding of high hazard was not about the likelihood of something going wrong, but the consequences if something went wrong. And if I read there, I also have a significant possibility of flooding populated area, significant possibilities, but that's talking about likelihood.
Well, I would say that phrase significant possibility of flooding populated areas is not currently part of the hazard classification system. High hazard doesn't take that into account. High hazard is just if the dam fails, will it cause loss of life?
I think, well, in my mind, a dam, just by virtue of being a high hazard potential dam, is one in which loss of life is probable, even just one.
Yeah.
So in my mind, every high hazard dam in a way has a significant possibility of flooding populated areas, because even just one life is high hazard. So in my mind, that's just saying, grab a list of high hazard dams in the state, which is already exists, so I thought that was pretty simple.
Thank you. My interpretation of the intent of this anyway was that, so a high hazard dam is one in which if it fails. Even one loss of life
Probably.
is probable, that would classify as high hazard. But the intent here is to look at places that have say more than just one potential, you know what I mean, that it's, we're looking at densely populated areas, so I think. In my mind, I'm taking that list of high hazard dams and ranking them actually by how many like loss of life is likely in the case of failure. Does that make sense? So and regardless of its condition, right, like it could be good condition or satisfactory or whatever, but again, should it fail, it's in the people in the shadow of it are, there's a significant population.
But it doesn't say significant, it says significant possibility.
Right.
So
I
that
think
is.
it will be rephrased here. It's, because I agree, I don't think this is quite, the way what's is said here is not quite, I think what the intent is.
This to me reads like, what's a high hazard dam, and identify those that are in poor repair.
Right, which is not the intent.
Oh, right, I think it was the condition, I think that was the.
Right, that's the possibility.
The Venn, back to that Venn diagram.
Right.
And I think what you're referring to is the term population at risk, which is high population risk, meaning dams that have population at risk people
Yes,
located in that inundation zone from, you'd set metrics like 0 to 10, 10 to 100, or
Right.
100 to thousands.
so
And you group them by that consequence.
do those have, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. So that also have a high population at risk, like would that be satisfactory? Or not satisfactory, but like would that be clear enough?
I think so. Maybe not use the word high again, though, because it's not.
Yeah,
It's population.
How do you do categorize that now?
Population at risk.
Yeah.
We don't have like a very high category like other states do, where if it's a far over 100 or 1,000, you're in a whole nother
Right.
class. We don't do that here. We don't have that many dams with tremendously high Rs, thankfully, but like Waterbury Dam, like 5,000, just to give you a
Yeah,
metric. With other dams where the high hazard dam with R is 5, so there's obviously a different consequence level there.
Is there a significant classification that you use, like a significant population at risk? Like what are the categories for the population at risk?
And I think I've seen like federal guidance documents that use like ranges of like 0 to 10, 10 to 100, 1,000, just to kind of.
Do you want to just put in more than a certain number
Yeah.
of people at risk? More than a certain population of people at risk?
Can I ask, why we're qualifying, if it's high hazard, why don't we include it in the identifying of dams?
It really is, because some high hazard are only at risk to one or two.
Right,
people.
but.
But those standards are different between the two dams, though. It's not like we say that they only have 2 people, so therefore the standards are less.
You're looking for it to prioritize spend, if that's kind of what we're looking for, right?
yeah, right, is it realistic to do all of them? If it was, then maybe we should just take out. Just leave it as high hazard dams, period.
Let's see, like the qualifier doesn't.
But I mean, I think what you're actually talking about is an entire risk assessment, which is well beyond what this they would do,
and-
the probability of failure. And restrain them.
I don't know if this is a possibility, sorry to keep jumping in here, but the part of the point of this particular study is for those dams that have uh risks that go across municipalities. So, you know, because otherwise you would just be registering the emergency plan with the one municipality, but if it affects multiple municipalities downstream, then we have to have a more regionalized kind of plan. So is there a way in that list of potential fatalities to say like that they're across municipalities? Like,
Well, isn't that what your population assessment takes into account? Anyway, it's not just,
Yeah, inundation maps, you know, will basically. Model the dam failure down to a point where it's no longer a risk to public safety, which and that would be, that's, then maybe this small dams case one town and Waterbury's case go all the way to Waterbury's of the Lake Champlain, so it could be multiple municipalities.
right, so
All
if
the emergency response.
if maybe we qualify it as high hazard dams, there's a risk of loss of life across various municipalities, maybe that's most of them.
I kind of understood this study group not to necessarily get focused on trying to come up with a list, but more to look at the actual issue that arises when we have an emergency action plan, and then we have. Challenges on the ground and the emergency commander, instant commander, emergency management communities, and bridging those two gaps, look at the regional level to see how we can get support for municipalities. That's where I saw it, not necessarily focusing on one dam or another dam, sort of looking more at that issue and try to come up with solutions to providing additional, additional assistance to, and come up with a process to provide additional assistance to limited communities that can't staff, full emergency management director, city commander, those kinds of things. So I saw it more generally than developing.
Specific by
lists.
specific.
Because it's gonna be statewide.
Interesting if we put a period after dams, as you said. Is that, the idea that it's more inclusive rather than less. Seems practical to me, given that they're. That makes sense.
You decided in particular, this line with my confusion caused me to think, I would like a review of the levels of risk in dams.
And they have,
What do we call one that is that's measured by the likelihood of something going wrong? Not the consequences, but the likelihood.
so we,
No, that's actually, what you're referring to is called a risk assessment, which is, risk is the product of, low conditioning being applied to the dam, fragility of the dam and resulting consequence downstream. That's analysis that is completely next level from, hazard potential classification or a condition rating. Those are relatively simplistic in comparison, because they're not applying probability of a loading condition and then tying it to fragility and then tying that to that specific situation having extreme risk assessment. We do have risk assessments for some high hazard dams in the state. We don't have them for all. Those are fairly in-depth analyses to perform. And also a more modern way of looking at dam safety is post-label, used to be called the standards-based approach. Now it's called the risk-informed decision-making approach, where we're evaluating the actual risk based on those to determine. We want to put limited focus, regulatory and military focus on dams that pose the highest risk. And that's how, find out the risk.
Well, the higher risk has more than one element to it.
yes,
The likelihood of something going wrong,
Yeah, I like
the
the
consequences of something.
consequence.
and the standards are, there's also a condition. The dams are also given a condition, so there's like 4 steps.
Right, conditions are based.
So I think that's kind of what you're trying to get at, is what is the quality of this dam? And that's more of the condition than it is the risk assessment of what would happen, so.
It's like stepping up the stairs in terms of quality of analyses, engineering work that's gone into it. A condition rating is based on a periodic inspection of several hours on site, reviewing the dam, comparing it to common standards. And developing a condition rating based on what you see there. It's not taking into account consequences, taking into account probability of anything happening. It's much more simplistic. It's helpful, but it's not full answer.
Okay, time is marching, so let me know what people think. We would just put a period after the word dams on line 9. We're pretty sitting dams that have, you know, high hazard content,
Right,
put them on the list,
right.
okay?
Where's that? Did that resolve your question?
Mitchell, I'm getting hurried.
Elizabeth Schilling, with the Vermont Public Utility Commission for the record. If I could take it back and be back one page, just go back one page.
So this is,
Page.
we're on to another edit.
57?
Page 55,
Oh.
line 13 through 14. So when I testified previously to the committee,
We didn't want to be on it.
I raised that the commission would be interested in being removed from this committee since we're ultimately seeking to transfer dam safety jurisdiction in the near term.
What did we sign on for?
Well, we thought that maybe since you still have a role till 2028, it'll be useful for you to be there because there's 4 years of risk and exposure.
So we did decide to have those FERC dams remain under PUC regulation. But it's not FERC dams, but if they're appealed,
Those ones that would, yeah, well, we didn't actually get to that one yet, but
cause I don't think we should. That would, we could take them off if we make a decision later that's different than the one that we have now. Could we agree that if they don't have the dams, just so that they know that we would take them off? But if we do, they could potentially sell the dams, we would like them in.
they don't all transfer till 2028.
Oh.
So, I mean, I understand not wanting to be
Yeah.
really, maybe they're not taking attendance at maybe,
I think their concerns just, the focus of this committee will largely be on municipal and regional planning, which is not necessarily an area of the commission's expertise. And with the transfer happening in the near term, it just seemed like maybe not the best use of resources. We'd like to be focused on the tasks necessary to make the transfer happen. And this is not necessary work for that to happen.
Right, so if that group is meeting and they need to coordinate with PUC, they could invite you in. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You'll still come in, you won't do it. You'll take the
If we are specifically invited.
Okay,
People would have look.
let's strike lines 13, 14.
Okay, thank you.
Nice. Pretty good.
I mean, we did that a lot on the summer working groups, people who didn't have to be out, but it's the help. Right. Senator Watson, I know you have to go, Senator, Donald had to go because of chores before it started.
Yeah.
I know those cows, hard to feed them in the dark. All right, you still have a quorum, let's, and you're gonna zoom in when you get.
I'm
in.
gonna be in the car.
Oh, in the car,
Just listening.
no video,
No, video, no.
okay,
We'll be sure you get it.
all right, so, marching forward.
59 was, I think, a page that had, I had a little, yeah,
Article 58, 59.
yes,
Consideration of-
this is that section, I believe.
Okay, so Michael, will you do the helpful frame up of the issue that 23 addresses?
Sure, so. The dams that PUC has jurisdiction over right now generate electricity. But they are currently not regulated under the federal scheme by FERC because they were pre-FERC jurisdiction.
Pre-1939 or something like that.
But they can come under FERC's jurisdiction if they are petitioned FERC and FERC authorizes them to come under FERC approval, then we have to go to FERC license, et cetera. They would not be subject to regulation by DEC anymore. So this language is about whether you require it and who does it and by when. So begin with the non-federal hydro project without a pre-1920 license being subject to FERC jurisdiction. They require a FERC license to operate by December 31st, 2024, PUC. So the PUC would be the one that would file the petition, but in coordination with DEC for declaratory order from FERC to determine whether the projects currently under PUC jurisdiction fall under first hydroelectric licensing jurisdiction.
And PUC is fine with this language, or would like to amend this language?
Thanks. So Elizabeth Schilling of the Public Utility Commission for the record. So I was not able to previously testify on this language because it wasn't included in the version of the bill when I testified previously. So the commission does have concerns with the language as currently drafted. An initial matter, the time frame for filing these petitions is very short. So this would require
21 petitions in 1 year.
exactly in less than a year. We don't have the staffing or resources right now to do that. We have a lot on our plate, and this would be a significant undertaking. So, you know,
Would it be workable if we move the date out?
that certainly would help moving the date out by at least another year. December 31st of 2025 would help. Other issues, we don't have the internal staff with the knowledge and expertise to provide the technical and environmental justification to FERC for these petitions. And as drafted, it says DEC would assist us, it can be appreciated. But them potentially taking the lead on this could potentially be more appropriate since they have the internal staff. That's another idea for the committee's consideration. And then also the range of dams currently under our jurisdiction is wide. So there are 9 small and low hazard dams under our jurisdiction, which may not be worth the effort to file the petitions with FERC. Additionally, the likelihood that FERC would exert jurisdiction over those small low hazard dams seems low. So also, you know, limiting the scope of the petitions that would be filed.
Whose idea is this? Whose language is this?
This is DEC's language. A&R's language.
Yeah, okay. Well, no, I just wanted to make sure, my note from the last read through is A&R wants PUC to retain jurisdiction. So, it sounds like is there a way to adjust this language to, address Ms. Schilling's concern? Like, is there a classification like, above a certain megawatts, or some way of saying they only obligated to do it and we could change the date?
We could have a conversation and get back to the committee potentially tomorrow. I think we just haven't. Yeah,
We haven't been able to talk.
Right, we haven't
And this
discussed.
particular issue has been like one final point of contention
Okay.
between the two entities.
So we're gonna be voting this tomorrow, and we can make an edit before we vote. We've had to do that before. But, so can you settle up sort of and bring something back to the committee when we do, if you can do it before we, all the better. If you can do it today and send something to Mr. O'Grady, even better still.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
if they don't ultimately come to a compromise, I would be open to swapping kind of on line 2 and 3, like swapping Public Utilities Commission for DEC, so that coordination goes the other way. Since they proposed the language, so.
well, it is, yeah, it's always. No, really, thank you. So let's see if they come up with.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm putting a follow-up on this one. Thank you. And is that something that the two of you can sort today?
Yeah.
Those are all my issues today.
Okay,
Not today.
so let's, on to section 24, we have gray language, so that usually means question pending.
Yes, this is the transition deadlines, timing, etc. When do you want it to go? So right now, it says on or before July 1, 2028, DEC assumes jurisdiction of all dams within DEC's control.
Anyone have a change to make on that?
I think it'd be. It's slightly dependent on what they come with, if ultimately they don't come to a compromise or they decide that the PUC should hold on to it, I think we would extend out that date. At the very least, or is that a
We
different?
drop down to that's on page 59, line 12, on or before January 15th. They, until DEC has assumed jurisdiction. You probably want to change that 2026 deadline. They report to you regarding progress and preparation, and then notwithstanding the effective date of transfer, PUC retains jurisdiction over dams in their control until DEC assumes jurisdiction. So. I mean, you have one other alternative, you just decide on the petition to FERC.
Oh.
Because I don't think you're mandated to petition. It's just that the DEC is concerned that once they take jurisdiction, somebody could petition, because it doesn't have to be with them. And they would be just shifting, have done all the work to assume jurisdiction, then would be shifting it off to FERC. And they don't want to do duplicative work, nobody wants to do duplicative.
Sure. Come up to speed on a dam and then it's transferred. Well, that, I didn't think that was part of, going all the way up to 2028 for that. So there would be 4 years worth of times for transfers to have occurred. And at that point, it's like, okay. Has to be some sort of date to move, so we use 28. But let me, help me with, line 12, 2026.
That's the report, that's the report. That doesn't really, they start to report. Basically progress on the transfer.
Okay.
Wasn't intended to be a detailed report, remember you talked at one point about just making a testimony. And then Hannah was like, maybe Ben would rather not have to come in here. And he could like send you a 1 page.
Oh, right.
Document.
Right. Even though there's a free gift with every visit.
Yes.
Committee.
You can have the statutes.
Right, okay, so, yeah, I'm sure before, all we're trying to do is stay apprised of what's happening. All right, so I'm not seeing any move to change anything in that section. Okay, so we flipping pages.
I don't have anything until 68, so this is the only other thing.
68 emergency notice provisions for natural disasters. I have a strike through on mine.
I will say that the general counsel for DEC emailed me today to answer any questions that I had. I believe she said tomorrow. And I said, I'd already been told to take it out, and she wants to make a case to bring it back in, she's got to talk to you often.
I would say, for those going to the house, there'll be another chance to present it. We don't really have time to vet it early, so let's pass on it, given the concerns that you shared with us when we previously discussed it. Okay, so that makes us to 10, so then we can go back to the beginning.
The dates, is that, did you leave the dates? Or did we decide on the dates, which is much easier?
Before you came in, we were talking about the dates going back 26 and 28, as opposed to 28, 30.
And that is what we're doing.
That's the thing. Staying.
I should just not be here. That's great, we need to.
Right, so let's double back to the beginning.
I don't. Was I here when you made that decision, or?
We were,
Yes.
we were talking about it, and I don't know if you were in the room
Okay.
when I said it.
Right.
Anyway.
I don't have
The whole thing was, in short, that, we wanted to move the dates up, and I talked to the secretary this morning about saying, please tell us, we want you to be able to make these dates, we don't want to engage in wishful thinking, tell us what resources you need in order to make those dates.
Okay.
And then we have to write the check. We don't write the check, then the dates, then we need to adjust to them.
Okay.
Okay,
Is that referring to some particular dates all the dates referenced in the bill.
Well, can we go through them?
Yeah,
Uh,
I think we start on page 3.
yeah, so on for January 1, 2026. DEC amends by procedure the base map, and that should say river part of that.
Oh, why is there 3?
Right. And then beginning January 1, 2025, and ending 2027, they do education and outreach.
Yeah.
And then on January 15, 27, they have a report back to you on the status of the education and outreach. Alright, so has anything changed yet?
But didn't we say we were gonna do 20, is that what you're saying, that you had decided to go to 2026 for that?
Well, I was thinking we.
Or that's the report one, so it's in
That's
the
the
middle of
report,
their
yeah.
public
It's
education.
Okay,
Right.
then you can go to. 5/6. And. Where's the first date?
So we have.
So you have the permit requirement is on page 9, and the rulemaking is on.
Well, we have, on page 6, line 10. We have a January 1, 2029 date. So I think that.
Yes, that's the rule.
Right, so we pull that.
So you want that to be,
So I just want to make sure
Yeah.
the rulemaking completes. I think we said 2028.
Yeah, what was, I would like what was ever in, I think it was draft 4.1.
alright, so 2028 for the rulemaking.
July.
Ms. Oates,
Laura notes the nation conservancy for the record, the previous version that was discussed was for rulemaking to be complete by July 1, 2027, with permitting to start January 1, 2028.
just trying to make sure I see the right dates. Can you say that again? We have, on or before January 1, 2020, in the current draft, 29, it's adopted. And what were you citing? I know it's the 4-1 draft. What?
It's because we moved the river corridor section all.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's tricky because I top forward.
So that would have been, is it? It would have been.
Other things are for those, back to one.
Is it section? I think I'm getting close on like page 9 in the other draft.
So it was July 1, 2027. And then the permit was January 1, 2028.
Good catch.
Page 29 of 4-1.
Oh, and it's because we changed all that up, so.
Well, the page 29 is, there's language earlier, the page 29 is a repetition of that.
Okay.
Was the agency not happy at
Yes,
those days?
they wanted it.
Am I right about that? The agency was not happy.
That's correct.
Not gonna change it.
Okay, so, Michael, can you? After draft 6-1, can you help us make sure we're filling in the dates properly on the 6-1 draft? So the first instance is page 6.
Let's just go. Let's walk through the dates.
Yeah.
So going from. So Article 4. No, similar to just graphs, so it's all already nothing. So in section 3, you're still gonna have the amendment by procedure, the base map by January 1, 2026.
Yeah.
You're still gonna have education account between 25 and 27. With a report back in 27. And then what would change would be the rulemaking adoption date. So as we just discussed, the 4151 draft had a July 1, 2027 date for adoption of the rules, and then it had a 28 date for permitting.
Okay, so then, page 6 is the first instance. Yes, one can.
Potential change.
Right, it's the first instance related to adopting rules.
Yes, that's,
So 9-10 was July of 2027.
so you want,
Yes, please.
and then do you just want the corresponding change for the permitting?
Yes, well, that's page 9, so
Yeah.
it pulls back.
I'll be 28.
No. I'm looking.
We're not done yet. Do you want the flood hazard area standard, those rules to not change their dates? Right now, they come back in 2026.
Those were. We were leaving with.
Okay, then just let's go to the transition section. On page. Well, it's on page 22 of what I have, but. We're trying to get ahead of the editing. So I'm
Okay.
having changes made and edited, so that's why I have them over at. So on page 22, section 11.
Yep.
You want those rules to be adopted on or before 2027, July 2027. And
Right, and currently it's. Well, so line 7 is January 1, 2027.
well, that is, they shall initiate. So,
Thank you, I didn't know it's seeing it.
you will want them to initiate, I would think. 2 years prior at least. They're still gonna be doing the dam rules at that time. A couple of other rules. All right, so July 1 of 2025, they initiate. And then initiate includes pre-rule making, so it's not that they filed anything with Secretary of State, whose pre-rule making is pre-APA.
And then that means so line 8, January 1, 2029 pulls back 2 years as well, or.
Well, that's up to you. I mean, that you've already made that decision. You already said the rules need to be adopted by July 2027. Not here, previous
So, okay,
section.
okay, so let me go here.
So that's. Well, I think is it.
And I. You know, so I know that that's a, earlier time on, it's my. There's an expectation that Maybe. Those aren't,
Shoot, if I leave, you're out of quorum.
Right.
Dang it, there, we know Ann's here. Okay, 1 second.
True, I am here.
What do you want highlighted? Do you just want what's highlighted from? Draft 6 which changed from 6.1, because there was a lot that hadn't been edited yet. When you looked at 6.1, but it's been edited now.
yeah. So I would say, yes, that changes we
Okay,
do today. But fine, read through,
and there's still one section that's bolded,
which will be the transfer language. And that you and Ms. Schilling were gonna see if you can sort out. Right?
You're still planning to vote this at 8:30 tomorrow?
10:15.
10:15.
Well, there's a lot of work to do.
I'm just.
Still. We're gonna review what we signed off on, other than there's one pretty much straightforward decision about how the transfer and the work provisions go through.
Still have a few questions.
Want to ask them now?
On page 25, section of lines 19. Give me a second again. We're going back to line 17. As a condition of a permit for activity in wetland, the secretary shall require the net gain of wetlands. This condition shall not apply to wetland, river, and floodplain restoration projects, including dam removals. So who does it apply to?
So any disturbance in the wetland that leads to an adverse impact of 5,000 square feet or more than 5,000 square feet. That's who it's going to apply to. You'll see that on page 26. Top of, I believe it's in 27. They have to establish a set of parameters and restoration ratios applicable to the permanently designed restored wetland products, including a minimum 2-to-1 of restoration to loss and compensate for permanently filled or drained wetlands. So it's also going to be what's set forth in the which is where they already do mitigation in lieu of. They're just now gonna have to review the rules of do mitigation for certain adverse impacts at 2-to-1. Or more, because they potentially have the ability to do more, because it says a minimum of 2-to-1.
I'm wondering if the person reading the language at the bottom of 25 would know the reference this other language makes sense out of this first one, first sentence. Can that be said just more clearly? Sort of a way of, I think a way of testing anything on the page is put yourself in the position of the person who doesn't know anything.
You could get rid of that, you could get rid of that entire sentence. Because the 2-to-1 doesn't kick in for page 26. If you wanted to remove any ambiguity.
Yeah, that's what
That is what the lieutenant governor said this morning.
so famous phrase. Okay, any one in the room have an issue with removing that final sentence, this condition shall not apply to wetland, river, and floodplain restoration projects, including getting Mr. Kyron.
Madam Chair, right, I apologize, I will need to leave at 6.
Right, we're gonna be done in 2 minutes. I believe.
So. Eric Carpenter for the record, so it was our concern that this would be another that. You know, restoration projects would have to have this type of permitting, but is Mike, just for greater, are you saying that?
So
It
the
would still
whole, the
apply.
whole policy of that game is in that first sentence, will apply before July 1, 2025.
That's great.
And then the rules. We clarify that the goal of wetlands regulation is in that game.
Yeah.
And so you don't really need that second sentence. Because the conditions for when you want to apply start on page 26 in sub B.
Okay,
Because 2 to 1 isn't going to apply to every effect in a wetland. So your allowed uses, your exemptions. Very few really qualify for exemptions anymore. They won't have to do 2 to 1, and anything less than 5,000 square feet of adverse effects, it's not gonna have to do 2 to 1.
that's fine, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Thanks.
so how it goes. Anything else, sir? Okay, great. And in the room have a loose end, you wanna point out? I did ask, before going to Mr. Smith, that I go draft language for that annual check-in report, the January 15th, something terse, that just says, we talked a little bit about it earlier, the status of our progress through these different rulemakings, our reach, education, funding, staff levels, just so we know that the plan that's laid out here that goes for the next 6 years, whatever, is on track.
That's just for the river corridor program, right?
Ms. Smith, something?
I do have the staffing projections based on this funding, if the committee's interested,
Yeah, these would be what the numbers we drop in,
okay.
right? So.
This is based on review of these timelines with staff, for the accelerated river corridor rulemaking and mapping timeline, which would require rulemaking to begin in less than a year. Staffing projections would be around 1.8 million. For the equivalent staff, it looks like that's 6 FTEs over the 2 years of rulemaking.
Okay,
And we had what?
and looking for where that, the insert in the bill, Michael, do you have that?
Well, it's a good question because there's 2 for mapping and then there's 2 for rulemaking.
Already, right?
So is this, I don't know what are those 6 in addition? Are those 6 just for rulemaking? I don't know where it would go in the bill.
I think that there were 2 for the flood hazard area rulemaking and 2 for the river corridor mapping. So this would be 6 FTEs. I have 2 different numbers, I'm sorry, 6 FTEs with 225,000 of one-time contractual support for mapping for river corridors. And then 2 FTEs and 225,000 of one-time contractual support for the flood hazard area rulemaking. So the 2 FTEs for the flood hazard area is in there, contractual support for both programs, plus the 6 FTEs for the river corridor rulemaking.
So can I'm just gonna try to summarize it so I understand. So river corridor is 6 FTEs. Permanent, full-time, plus 255,
225.
225. And that's for, what kind of contractual?
I have high level numbers and I have to get back to you. It's detailed.
Why don't I just say contracting for purposes of implementation of the program?
Okay.
Seems big enough that it can fall outside of that.
And then 2 FTEs for
Establishment of the flood hazard.
flood hazard areas.
And was there also a dollar figure for that as well?
The,
Plus 225 for contractual, I heard, right?
yes,
Plus 2 for mapping. Infill mapping, or are they part of the 6 FTEs?
I. I think they're part of the 6 FTEs.
Okay. Right.
Because we have 2 FTEs on mapping now. Does that let you fill in the blanks?
I will. But we have another program to fund, right? 2 other programs.
Dams,
Dams,
yeah,
are you making any changes to that?
6 FTEs, base funding of 900,000.
Dams is 6 FTEs. And that's how much?
With a base fund of 900,000.
Wait, so river quarters is 1.8. With 6 FTEs, and dams is only 900,000, 6 FTEs.
No, the base funding for both FTEs is 900,000. I don't, yeah, I have a lot of confusing.
Okay.
This, it's 900,000 for 6 FTEs for both programs.
Okay,
Um,
My roommate is like, where are
in
you?
addition. The. The revolving loan fund would need to be capitalized,
okay, how much?
2 and 4 million annually for 5 years.
We can only do one appropriation year if it's not a capital fund, if it's going to be a capital fund.
I don't know. I know, sorry.
So you're saying 2 to 4, so we just put 2 for the moment. And then if you can have, I know these are on the fly, before we convene or when we convene tomorrow and edit numbers, those are pretty easy
Yes.
to edit.
Okay. And no new money for wetlands?
See. 2 FTEs. 300,000.
All right.
That's
Okay,
my fault.
anything else we haven't discussed? Thank you, everyone.